Welcome to a staggering week of spaceflight action. Yes, you can already see this video is quite long, and this week it is a matter of trying to squeeze in all the important stuff just to be able to get it through to you in time. We've got another explosion, we have Starship news breaking from all the sites, and missions taking flight faster than we can take them all in.
Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now.
Hey, Marcus House with you here, and now that we've had a little time to digest the events of Ship 36's explosion last week, there's quite a lot to talk about as we head forward to determine what will come next in the program. Since last week, Shaun got hold of this wide-angle view from friends nearby, and as we can see from Robert's recording, it was quite the shot. They were all together preparing cameras when it all happened.
There we go. Oh no!
That's not good.
No!
That's not good at all.
Oh no!
Yeah, no one expected that. So, over a week on, what's been happening at Massey since that destruction? As shown last week thanks to these views, the damage was quite extensive, but early this week, just take a look at some of these shots from RGV Aerial Photography, who was back in action providing some fresh views. With the entire quick disconnect framework that hooks up to the ship clearly totaled, with damage extending back through the tank farm, there were other areas that seemed better than expected. Fortunately, the damage doesn't look too bad on the actual static fire stand itself. It will obviously still need a bunch of work, but at least it looks repairable. We also got a great look on the bracing for the Raptor vacuum. Keep in mind that the Raptor vacuums are mounted to the aft dome of the vehicle, but in addition to that, they also have further bracing on the nozzle itself. In flight, they have this right at the interface for the nozzle extension. With these engines optimised for work in a vacuum, that needs more bracing. So yeah, we can see this from Ship 36's single engine static fire right at the bottom of the nozzle extension. As you can see, this is hard mounted onto the static fire stand itself so that the vacuum nozzles don't take any damage. Now, we could already see the SpaceX crew back at the site and beginning the cleanup process. You could see here this crane was hooked up to a crate that small parts could go into and then be hauled off-site. Along with that, there was another one here closer to the tank farm picking up debris too. In a very bizarre event on Tuesday, we saw this crane picking up debris from Lab Padre's rocket range camera, and yeah, take a look at what happened here. It completely toppled over onto the side. At the time, we were just hoping that the operator and everybody else nearby was all right, but at this stage we haven't heard anything. Shaun was out there on site just after and didn't see any sign of an emergency, so hopefully it was just a big yikes moment. Certainly not something that you want to see. Massey's really has had bad luck surrounding it this week. With the cleanup of Ship 36 well underway, chunks of the beast were being dragged to specific locations. We suspect for now they will keep everything on site if they need to perform any inspections, but as soon as that is done, they will then truck it off ready to be recycled. The silver lining is that this unintended disassembly has given the incredible 3D artists out there like Chameleon Circuit a chance to see firsthand some of the finer points of the Block 2 system internally. So let's look onwards to the future. The new Pad 2 tank farm is coming along super nicely. SpaceX is now doing some big testing. This week, the main cryogenic lines leading towards 8 of the 9 liquid oxygen pumps had frosted up, so they had cryogenics inside. That 9th pump and motor combination is still missing, but that will be installed soon, I'm sure. Given that SpaceX are now relying a lot more on bolted flanges instead of welded lines, it requires a bit more testing to verify that nothing leaks, but if in the future parts do end up needing to be replaced, it is going to be a lot easier. Simply undo the bolts and remove the gasket instead of having to torch through the welded connections. Now, of course, where there are cryogenics, there is also boil-off, and for Pad 2, they are dispersing all this gas in a much more active way via this fan box. That ensures that the full launch site will not be covered in a thick blanket of fog like we've seen in some of the launches. That makes the area a very oxygen-poor environment, so if they just want to do some quick tests and need the crew back in, they've got to wait longer for the potentially hazardous air quality to recover. On the flip side, with these new fan boxes, the boil-off is rapidly dispersed higher up into the air, and that should clear much faster. For us, of course, the secondary bonus is that the ground cameras won't be obstructed as much with that thick fog. It's also worth mentioning that the methane side now has 6 of the 8 pumps now fully installed, so it's coming along nicely. Following the culvert, we end up at the water tank farm. The 4 bigger tanks are now connected up with the gas distribution manifold, and the 5 smaller tanks have just the 3 remaining. The big question though, how is SpaceX going to pressurise these tanks to push all that water through to the two flame deflector halves and the launch mount pancake right at launch? Well, CSI Starbase is thinking that they could be using 9 of these baby Raptors to pressurise the tanks. Speculative for now, but if that works out to be correct, that would be quite a unique setup compared to any other deluge system. Most of these are gravity fed, or if we look at Pad 1, that relies instead on high pressure compressed gas in these tanks. Anyway, hearing these baby Raptors scream to life for the first time is going to be quite amazing, I'm sure. In the back of my mind, I can't help but wonder if variations of these may in fact be what SpaceX will use for the HLS landing engines up towards the nose. We've been waiting for years to find out what sort of engines would be used for that. They've also started to construct the rebar skeleton for a blast protection wall that will protect the water tank farm. The concrete forms have also been placed around, ready for the concrete. Even though the new pad will mostly guide the exhaust through the two deflectors, once it is a bit higher up in the air, the plume can just expand and go over the sides of the launch mount. On the tower, cladding is continuing to climb higher. That's a great sign that the systems inside are far enough along to not need access from these sides. The workers also installed a panel featuring a crew access hatch and deflector ridge. This was also present on Pad 1 but located in a slightly different location to Pad 2. It's likely for worker access onto the arm carriage when needed. The launch mount itself has had scaffolding appear at both the locations of the booster quick disconnect hoods. I can't wait to see that evolved system in play, finally. The hold down arms are now also being delivered in pairs to the launch site after they have been stored at the Sanchez area for a while. Not long after the arrival, one by one they are being installed, so another neat milestone. I'm also pleased to see the two booster quick disconnect structures being assembled. Remember, the next generation booster will have 2 separate quick disconnects rather than just the one like we've seen up to this point, so this is all very intriguing to watch come together. Close by, we suspect that these are the 2 doors that will rapidly snap closed to shield the quick disconnects during the launches. The floor of the 2 flame trench exhausts is now being finalised with the rebar for the top being laid out, so concrete is to be poured there too. A bit lower, both angled sets of metal plates for the exhaust are well over halfway, and what is this? Well, that could be a few things, so speculative here. It could be a rainbird that will provide additional cooling for the slope, or perhaps it is a sump of some sort to allow SpaceX to easily pump water out of the trench after the deluge system is activated for a test, or obviously a flight. You could also imagine the case of an abort where Starship's engines don't ignite at all. Indeed, you would want an easy way to pump the water back out of that trench. Heading over to the build site, let's start with this rather strange move. Yes, that is the hot staging ring once again being moved inside Mega Bay 1 to, we assume, be installed again on Booster 16. Given the state of Massey's and the lack of a flight coming soon, you might wonder why. Well, we don't know, but I'm wondering if SpaceX will simply be moving this booster into the rocket garden soon. If so, that ring stacked on top would keep the elements inside the forward compartment safe from the weather. Just in front of that, of course, we have the foundations for the Gigabay. Since finishing the initial gravel layer, they brought in these pieces for the continuous flight auger and laid them down. Those were moved away towards the staging area to be installed on the rigs. Now, once everything was removed, they started to lay down more of the geotext tile, quickly followed by more gravel. I think this is really neat at the moment. With a clear view here, it's worth pointing out that we get to watch all of the sections moving inside both of the megabays. We can also see Ship 38 right here on the centre stand. Now, in a surprise twist just hours ago, we had this ship transport stand being moved towards the launch site. Could it be that SpaceX is pursuing the option to do a static fire of the next ship with this transport stand being simply welded on top of the orbital launch mount deck? After all, this pad really only needs to survive 2 more launches and that is it. It seems very much like SpaceX, doesn't it? They're not going to let a damaged test site hold them back, and this would hopefully allow them to finally get that crucial ship re-entry data. There is going to be a lot to see here in the next week. Now, we just have to head all the way across the country to visit the Starship work over at the Cape. Check out the Starship pad at Launch Complex 39A. We can see much more clearly now that the flame trench here is designed very similar to Pad 2 in Texas. This seems to be coming along even quicker with the trench already fully dug and now ready to start the pile cap. These sweet new views from the amazing Greg Scott just days ago show us a great deal. Us being able to help fund these flights and share work like this is only possible because of you being here watching and subscribed. Thanks so much for all that and the many questions around the Florida site. For that launch pad, you of course need a launch mount, which is frantically being worked on inside this tent. That obviously helps them keep out of the elements, so unlike Starbase in Texas, they don't need to always try to cover up the areas that they are working on. Close by, they have been expanding the amount of places where they can construct new tower segments with a total of 17 locations that they can assemble those. Here, it appears that 2 corner pillars for a tower segment have been delivered already. All of these assembly locations, by the way, is almost enough for not just 1 launch tower, but 2. I think you can see where we're going with this. I imagine we're going to have 2 being built for Launch Complex 37 alone, where SpaceX has recently toppled over the old facilities. The cleanup of those is already ripping along, with one of the Lightning towers already gone and the vertical integration facility being torn to pieces. Anyway, back to Roberts Road. By far the biggest progress here is the Giga Bay Foundation work. More on that in just a moment, but before I dive into all that, a gigantic thanks to Odoo sponsoring this video. If you've ever tried running a business, you know that invoicing can be a real drag. It should be simple, but so often it turns into a time-consuming mess. That's where Odoo's invoicing app really shines. Let's say you've just sold a few of your inspiring new products. Something, let's say, like an awesome 3D printed model of a super heavy booster. With Odoo, just pop in your customers' details to create their profile for future use, enter your products sold there, add the quantity, the price, and boom, you've got that clean professional invoice in seconds. No messy spreadsheets, no clunky formatting, and yes, you can of course include your brand and modify the layout as you need. From there, Odoo lets you send it off straight to your customer with your pre-selected email templates. Even better, they can pay online right through the customer portal using a number of integrated popular payment methods. After all, the easier you make it to pay, the faster that money can land in your account. What about the management of overdue invoices though? Odoo's got you back there too. You can track where payments are at and see how your business is performing in real time. They don't stop with invoicing either. That's just one part of a full suite of apps covering everything from accounting, customer relationship management, and a whole bunch more. They integrate seamlessly with each other. Yes, Odoo is designed to grow with you, so give it a try. Your first app is free for life with unlimited hosting and support. The link is right there in the description below. Thank you, Odoo. So back to the Giga Bay Foundation work, the piles have been dug and they're already constructing more of the pile cap. You can see that just before Greg's flight they had finished pouring another section of the sacrificial rat pad. That is a thin layer of concrete, mostly poured to simply improve the working conditions for the crew. Next, they will be able to construct the rebar cage on top and soon link up the full foundation. Now, interestingly, they've put these piles not just at the locations for the wall of the Giga Bay, but also where we suspect the support legs will go for all of the workstations. That gives us a good insight, suggesting that they'll have 4 rows of 6 workstations for a total of 24. Now, Greg also took the opportunity to check out Blue Origin, and it's insane just how big this is becoming. It's obviously set to become even larger in the future because here we can see more building sections being delivered and staged. That's not really surprising though. This is the only place where they build New Glenn, but also the Blue Moon lunar landers and other projects in the future like the Orbital Reef space station. It's also worth a side note to say that Blue Origin has just hinted a special delivery. That is of course all related to their Blue Moon Mark I lander that we hope to see fly by the end of the year. Make sure that you are following Greg's work here on X, and a big thank you to those supporting him on Patreon. These sites are obviously now moving very rapidly, so we'll try to get views more often. Not quite as simple as it is in Texas with all the open public access, but we're on it. He's even snapping angles like this of the new SLS tower being worked on. Now, speaking of SLS, Northrop Grumman was test firing its new 5-segment booster obsolescence and life extension solid rocket motor this week in Utah. Jack with NSF was right there in the thick of that action, and it was well worth the trip because, check this out, yes, the test had started beautifully, but the nozzle had dramatically blown itself apart quite close to when the test would have ended. Looks like some improvements to work on there, but the earlier parts of this test were looking very impressive. That new electronic thrust vector control system was appearing to work very smoothly. Well, until it couldn't. Now, it has been a gigantic week of launch action. Transporter 14 launched Monday afternoon from Vandenberg as the dedicated rideshare flight into a sun-synchronous orbit for the 70 payloads on board. Nice afternoon views there on the ascent, stage separation there, and there go the fairings showing off the complex stack making up this rideshare extravaganza. Now, normally these transporter missions are returned to launch site flights, but not this time. No, the overall payload mass must have been enough that they needed to go for a drone ship landing. Of course, I Still Love You was waiting downrange, and yes, that was landing number 26 for booster 1071. After the second stage was in the desired orbit, we just needed to wait for the deployments to begin just after the 54-minute mark. One by one, off they all went. Dozens of small microsatellites and nanosatellites for commercial and government customers. One of those, by the way, included Gilmore Space from Australia with their Alarisat. They partnered up with the CSIRO partners, integrating their hyperspectral imager onto the Alarisat bus. As a quick side note, this submission will hopefully play a crucial role for AquaWatch, which is a real-time ground-to-space water quality monitoring system. What we know for now is that they've established communications, confirmed power generation with the solar panels deployed, and verified all seems well, so the team is excited so far. Also included was Otterpup 2 by Starfish Space that I talked about back in May. Hopefully, this neat little unit will get to perform all of its mission objectives. The tiny spacecraft is going to attempt an unprecedented commercial docking with another satellite in low Earth orbit. A few years ago, Otterpup 1 that had launched on Transporter 8 couldn't do everything it had planned, all due to an anomaly with launcher's SN3 space tug. Fun fact, Transporter 8 was launched with the exact same Falcon 9 booster at 1071 in 2023, so both Otterpup 1 and 2 have been launched with the exact same booster. With this mission, they are looking to rendezvous, perform the proximity operations, and then dock with a deorbit ion satellite. I'll be keeping an eye on everything that we hear from this one. Now, also on board with everything else was the fourth re-entry capsule for Varda Space, working to manufacture pharmaceuticals in microgravity and then return them to Earth. Last to deploy was exploration company's Mission Possible capsule. That contains cremated remains of 150 people, which is a wonderful tribute. We didn't get to see that one drifting away, but we did hear the call out.
Mission Possible capsule deploy confirmed.
That was to orbit a few times before re-entering to be recovered. So yes, Transporter 14 was a massive mission, and best of luck to everybody with spacecraft on board. I think it is always just magical seeing all these companies having this much more affordable access to space. Now finally, after a lengthy delay, another crewed mission has made its way off the pad with Axiom Space's fourth private mission to the International Space Station. Early on Wednesday morning, the crew were strapped in and ready to fly after their lengthy stay in quarantine. As I've talked about in previous videos, the 4 spacefarers from 4 different countries were led by Peggy Whitson, and they were in for a beautifully smooth ride. Just check out this incredible view streamed right from above Pad 39A. Just pausing here, check out another Starship flame trench view from this angle, certainly well on the way as they prepare this site for future Starship launches. We rarely get to see views from this angle, so very cool. It was again very interesting watching the G-force readout on the first ever crewed mission where it has been displayed. SpaceX were about to lower the thrust right down before max Q, and as always, very nice to hear John Innsbrucker involved in the commentary for this mission.
9 Merlin engines, we're into the throttle bucket, preparing for max Q.
They quickly ramp up the G-force back up to 2.1 as max Q is passed, and they let that slowly increase to 3.4 G right before stage separation. Now you've just got to watch the interaction of the exhaust plumes here as the second stage pushed on forward while the booster had kicked off in the opposite direction for its boost backburn. Wow, that is really something. Indeed, this was also, of course, a wonderful opportunity to watch another magical return to launch site mission with booster 1094 screaming back into the atmosphere and firing up to touchdown at landing zone 1.
Stage 2 FTSS safe. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
Soon after, second engine cutoff, and there we have Dragon separation heading off into an orbital sunrise. Now the four just needed to settle in and enjoy the 28-hour trip to the International Space Station. The next day, here they were already preparing to dock. Absolutely beautiful footage of the docking as they came in there. Once boarded, there was no time to lose, of course. This is a mission packed with loads of science and they dove right into it. I think it's so wonderful seeing Axiom running over these missions as they prepare for their next, much more ambitious plan of eventually building their own space station module. With the International Space Station preparing to be deorbited in a few years, we want to see private companies eventually forming dedicated space stations to continue the legacy of being able to have a continuous human presence in orbit. Anyway, this mission up here is going to last around 14 days or so before it is returned. So yeah, awesome to see yet another successful crewed mission. Along with all of that, of course, we had more routine Starlink action. The batch for Group 1023 was rocketing away from Launch Complex 39A in the very early hours of Monday morning. A nice uniform stack of 27 on board there, as we could see at fairing jettison, and a shortfall of gravitas as the landing platform for Booster 1069's 25th landing. Group 1016 was off next Wednesday afternoon, also from Florida at Space Launch Complex 40, another identical looking stack of 27 as we had seen a few days earlier, but the visuals of the ascent much better in the daylight. Just read the instructions was awaiting the 20th landing of Booster 1080 here, and there we go. Now surely that was enough Falcon 9 action for the week though, right? Nope, just hours ago and just after entering Saturday, a little after midnight, there was yet another from the same Slick 40 pad. This was Group 1034, and I tell you what, it is absolutely incredible how many launches we are seeing of Falcon 9 these days. 5 launches easily within a single week. It is crazy. Now speaking of internet constellations like Starlink, another early morning ride to orbit this week from United Launch Alliance. Indeed, on Monday, the mighty Atlas V launched from Cape Canaveral carrying Amazon's second Kuiper mission into orbit. Absolutely beautiful shots of this here by Greg Scott too. Got to love a good long exposure shot there. The 551 configuration is the most powerful Atlas V option with the 5 solid rocket boosters strapped on there. The 27 new satellites on board are of course a part of Amazon's huge plan to set up their own internet constellation. Given the success so far with Starlink, it's going to be interesting to see how much market share Amazon can actually soak up. They really need to launch half of their constellation of 3,200 satellites by July of 2026 based on their plan with the FCC, so they've got a long way to go. It's a complex setup too. 98 orbital planes in 3 orbital layers between 590 and 630 kilometers in altitude. I don't know, putting over 1,600 satellites into orbit within about 13 months seems like a tough ask to me. ULA alone is contracted to deliver over half of the full constellation, with 6 more flights already booked on Atlas V and 38 more lined up for Vulcan once that really gets into action. So far, that has been very slow to ramp up. So yeah, what do you think? Is it even possible at this point that Amazon can put that many into orbit by next year? Anyway, the coverage ended right after Centaur stage separation there, so no glimpse of the stack on board or anything like that. So yeah, this week really has been almost silly for launches. The mission Get the Hawk Outta Here was off with Rocket Lab on Friday. There were 4 payloads on board this one. 3 of those were the Hawkeye 360 satellites, all to form part of a civil global intelligence network. Each of these is designed to scan and collect information on specific radio signals worldwide. The 4th satellite was a Kestrel experimental satellite designed to, as they said, evaluate emerging capabilities and future technology enhancements, whatever that means. There was even supposed to be another Rocket Lab flight, Symphony in the Stars, just hours ago, but I needed to get this video exporting just to get it uploaded. So take a look at their channel to see if that has already happened. Right, now I've just got to show you the incredible stuff that has come from the new Virtu Rubin Observatory. We have been waiting to see the Legacy Survey of Space and Time, or LSST, data come in for many years, and finally we are seeing the incredible observatory ripping into action. The 3200 megapixel camera crammed into this is the size of a car and twice the weight. The images taken by it are layered onto one another, which means that we get to see this interesting mix of still objects in the extreme distance. Think galaxies, stars, and all that sort of thing. But then we get to see this motion blur for objects in close proximity to us, like asteroids or even interstellar objects passing right through the solar system. All these images are going to look surprisingly clean, unlike the James Webb Space Telescope, which shows very distinctive diffraction spikes around stars due to its segmented mirror. Rubin's design and rotating field of view actually helps cancel those out over time. As it takes repeated images from slightly different angles, those spikes effectively average out, making the final composites look smoother. These aren't just pretty pictures though. This observatory is a data generating monster. It's expecting to produce more data than all telescopes in history combined, all thanks to its wide field of view and rapid scanning capability. They think this is going to be able to image the entire visible southern sky every 3 nights, which is absolutely nuts. Once it is up to full speed, simply keeping up with the sheer volume of discoveries coming from this thing will be a challenge in itself. Given that a lot of these initial views are testing the capability and incorporate a lot of calibration images, this is obviously just the very beginning. Let's just look at asteroid detection alone. We want to know as much as possible from all that we can see here, especially so that we can find any asteroid on a collision course with Earth, but also so we can plan asteroid redirect test missions or even prototype mining vehicles. To date, we have logged about 1 million asteroids using other methods. Well, by the time Rubin's sweep is complete, that number is expected to rise 5-fold. Now, looking much further away, astronomers use Lyra variable stars to understand distance. They call this a standard candle, but what that essentially means is that this is an object with a well-known brightness. This observatory will be mapping these up to a distance of over 1 million light years. This will not just give us a clearer understanding of the structure of the Milky Way disk, but also its galactic halo, which is currently estimated to extend nearly half of the way to Andromeda. There's already some nice direct shots of regions within the Milky Way, such as this wonderful image of the Trifid and Lagoon Nebula for us to explore. Moving on, the wide field of view is so large that even a slice of it, like this one named the Cosmic Treasure Chest, shows a large region of the Virgo cluster, part of the supercluster that our very own local group is in. This view alone contains about 10 million galaxies. It really is mind-blowing. During its 10-year legacy survey of space and time, it aims to capture approximately 20 billion. I think what astronomers are particularly excited about, though, is the clarity of the galactic structures that we can already make out. Mathematical models predicted shockwaves made of stars after interactions with other galaxies, and just look here. We can see with our own eyes that this is a shockwave literally made up of billions of stars in a small portion of another image called cosmic drama. Finally though, check out this one here named Cosmic Abundance. It's an even deeper dive into the Virgo cluster image. This one shows us a little bit of everything from close-up stars to relatively nearby spiral galaxies. We see many merging galaxy clusters further beyond that, and all of those reddish dots that you can see littering the entire scene, they are countless galaxies fading back towards the beginning of space and time itself. I think it is just magical. Believe it or not, the images that we are able to download so far are only 1/50th the size of the full field of view. It's so big that you would need about 400 HD TVs or a basketball court-sized monitor just to see the full image at once. Of course, we are luckier than that because we get to see the entire field of view at its full quality using the online tool, which we highly recommend checking out. It's great, of course, for a quick look, but you can go nuts diving deeper into the field of astronomy. The door is currently wide open for anyone in the world to potentially start finding and naming all these objects thanks to this new technology. So yeah, it sounds like a great task for you to get started on. So yes, that was a monster week. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit subscribe so we get to keep making them. If you want to continue with more space goodness, check out this video here next, or maybe these videos. Thanks for watching all this through. As always, my friends, I will see you all in the next video.